Good afternoon. I am Danielle Smith. I am on the International Board of Directors, and I am here with Raychel Lean with Reputation Inc. And Raychel gave a presentation this afternoon on Think Like an Editor, how to run your marketing like a newsroom. So Raychel, you've had a career of sort of journalism and the law firm perspective. So kind of tell us in your presentation, for those who maybe missed the session, what is the one sort of key message point based on your experience in your career that you really want to get across in the session?
The idea for this panel came from, when you're writing some kind of law firm announcement, and maybe it starts with like, the firm is pleased to announce, blah, 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 blah. And even as you're writing it, you're kind of like, I don't know if anyone's going to care about this. Maybe the managing partner is going to care because the managing partner is pleased to announce this. But who else is going to care? And it was that frustration that as a former journalist, I would feel regularly. And we've probably all felt at some point. And some hills are not worth dying on, right? But
yes.
But, journalists are very good at thinking about the audience, the actual audience that you want to get in front of, beyond the managing partner who, yes, we need to make them happy as well. But there's a way to marry the two. Nobody wakes up in the morning and thinks, I wonder what law firm XYZ is doing today. Like, let me look them up. Let me go on their website. No, people wake up in the morning and they think, me, my problems, my life. What am I going to do today, tomorrow, at work? And journalists are really good at thinking about that because their whole reason for being is to serve an audience, and they've got to know who their audience is and what their audience cares about and thinks about and needs to know. And so the idea for this panel is basically have them in mind, make them your North Star, whoever that audience is, the ideal client, and have them in mind as you write every piece of content or do every pitch.
So you talk about sort of operating with that journalism mindset, right? So what do you think law firms are maybe still getting wrong when it comes to thought leadership? Maybe it's like the process or what they're doing on a day-to-day basis.
Yes, I think it's, you sometimes need to just slow down and think through, again, who the audience is. So for example, when I was a journalist, I would wake up every morning and I would go to my editor with an idea for a story. And a lot of times, especially in the beginning, I would say, let's say my story idea was like, this law firm just won a $10 million verdict. I used to work at law.com. And she would say, so? And I would be like, can that not just be the story? And she'd be like, well, think about it. Our audience are lawyers. They don't care if some firm got a $10 million verdict. They want to get a $10 million verdict though, or they maybe want to defend against a $10 million verdict. So this is still news, but how do we frame this around what they will care about? So maybe the story is actually, this verdict maybe gives us a new blueprint for like how to argue a negligent security case. Just made that up. And then a lawyer who is in a negligent security type of field will look at that and be like, oh, I'd like to learn something from that. And they click on those stories. And that's what I would see. So it's kind of reframing. Again, like if a lawyer comes to you with a story, it probably is a story, but you need to help take a step back and help educate them on how to frame it.
Absolutely. So we can't talk about content generation without talking about AI, of course.
Yes.
And obviously there are so many AI capabilities that can really help you write warm news articles and stories. But how do you really write a piece or look at a piece that feels authentic and doesn't feel like it's being generated from AI?
Oh my God, that's so important. When we work with lawyers especially, or anyone in the service industry, the service that they're providing, the value that they have is in their brain, right? It's not in a large language model. So every piece of content that we're putting out there, the thought leadership, it has to have their thoughts behind it, within it. So use AI, but don't rely on AI to give you that. It's not going to give you anything unique or anything authentic. AI has not represented clients for decades. It hasn't stood in a courtroom. So pull those things from the attorneys and help them feel empowered to use those, and use AI to help you structure or, draft. But that's what's going to, and also simple language too, write it in a way that I'm sick of reading like the evolving landscape of
right.
Right. So when it gives you that stuff, kind of challenge it the way you would edit a human being when you read their writing and you're like, I don't love that bit. Challenge it to be better.
Yeah. So I know any good law firm PR strategy, right, has building strong relationships with editors and the media. So what is some advice you can give legal marketers to sort of help? How do they help keep their law firm stay top of mind and have those really strong sort of lasting relationships with the editors and the media?
Yes. I mean, it's a long-term relationship, like you say.
Right.
And you don't want to be the professional that reaches out to a journalist only when you need something from them. I mean, sometimes you might, but you want to be a recognizable name, a recognizable voice. So reach out to them before you ever need them for anything. They'll feel that. You feel when someone's only coming to you for a favor or a story, and actually take an interest in who they are and, again, in their audience. They know more about their audience than you ever can, and ask them questions. If you live locally to them, invite them for lunch. That's a lot of journalists will be happy to do that. So it's about building the relationship before you really need to use it. And then they'll come to understand your point of view as well. And I think the best relationships I had with PR people, with marketing people when I was a journalist were the ones where we felt comfortable brainstorming with each other. And we would sit down and we would always leave with a story because we both wanted to help each other. We both liked each other. And there's usually a way, like I say, to marry the two together.
Yeah. I'm going to throw a question out there for you.
Okay.
So let's say you have a good relationship with an editor and you position an attorney for a story and it doesn't go well. How do you sort of come back and maybe rebuild that relationship to really know we are a strong source of information, our firm and our other attorneys? How can you sort of help repair those relationships? Because that often happens, right? We do position attorneys and sometimes it doesn't go well.
You mean, how do you rebuild the relationship with the editor?
Yes.
Yes. It's all about, you have to kind of, every day's a new day, The editor, it wasn't personal to you, right? The editor is just doing their job and serving their audience, and they made a decision that was better for their audience, and you have to kind of accept that and be like, okay, it wasn't about me. So that's the first thing. And honestly, the second thing is just carry on, start the next day as a new day and pitch them something else and learn and think, what went wrong here? What was my role in it? And how can that not happen again? I really think you have to not take things too personally. I mean, I think we're used to that dealing with lawyers. If you take things personally, you will become a shell of yourself.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of like that. Having been the editor that's made decisions that other people have not always liked, it was never about them ever. And also sometimes you internally oh, I'm so sorry, but I have to, make this decision or not include this attorney's quote. Sometimes you can always reach out to them and say, hey, I just want to understand, what happened here, or the attorney wasn't included in the story. Could you just explain your thinking? And sometimes people would do that with me, and I would be like, we would end up coming to another idea for a new story. That could happen.
Let's wrap up with one last question. Let's say you're a new legal marketer, you're going into a PR position. What are sort of some words of wisdom you can give someone going into a position like that, even from a professional development, sort of how to build relationships? But what is some advice you can kind of give?
Trust yourself. Trust your experience, your training, your skills. Just the same way that an attorney is the one that you would go to if you have a legal issue. You are an expert on legal marketing. And it doesn't matter if you're at the beginning of your career or halfway through or senior. Feel empowered to stand in your experience and trust your instinct. When your instinct said this is not a story, challenge the attorney on it politely, as of course you will. But that's why you're there. That's why they've hired you. They want your opinion. And as long as you ground it in something that is actually makes sense in terms of the firm's business goals, then they will listen. And if they don't, that's not the end of the world either, but you've done your job. That's what I would say. And if you are coming into legal marketing having no experience in legal stuff, don't let that hold you back. I literally started law.com knowing nothing about law. I didn't know the difference between a complaint and an opinion, and I just talked to people and I asked them questions. I talked to lawyers all day, and then I became the editor of the publication. If I can do it, anyone can do it. And actually, that's your strength too. If you are not like deep in the jargon and the detail, that's such a power, because you have the ability to see it differently to other people. You can explain it in a way that is simple and that the target audience is probably going to understand better and care about more.
Yeah, I love that. Talking about know yourself, that's kind of like the keynote this morning, right? Know your power, know your influence, sort of stand on your expertise. So thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for leading such a great presentation this afternoon. And more to come, LMA Programming.